Welcome back to the Tony Chirah Show, where we don't whisper around power, we question it. Tonight's conversation is about leadership, citizenship, and the future of African democracy. My guest is a woman whose career has moved across law, public service, political communication, and civic education. She is a lawyer and advocate of the High Court of Kenya, a former senior strategist inside government communication and policy spaces, the founder of Kingdom Africa, an initiative working to raise a generation of informed and ethical citizens. She is also an author writing about constitutional literacy and women's leadership, translating complex governance issues into civic knowledge for young people. And long before policy rooms and governance debates, she was also a model, a reminder that public journeys are rarely linear. Recognized among the 100 most influential young Africans and an Obama Foundation Leader Africa, she represents the generation asking difficult questions about power, responsibility, and the role of citizenship in shaping the future of the continent. Tonight we ask, are African citizens truly empowered or simply managed? And what does real civic education actually look like? Joining me now is Sandra Ochola. Sandra, hi.
Hello, how are you?
Very well. How have you been?
I've been keeping well, thank you. Thanks for having me
Awesome.
today.
Awesome. Good to see you after some time.
Yes.
Right. Let me jump in straight up into this conversation. Before the law, before government advisory roles, before civic leadership, you were a model. Let us start there. Tell us about that.
Yes, I was. And it's a period that I really enjoyed. I started out being, or rather, when I was crowned Miss Moi University back in college, Miss Moi University, and then I also competed now for Miss University. There wasn't much activity then as it is now. And after that, I did Miss Malaika as well, if I remember correctly. I did Miss Malaika as well, and then there was also Miss World Kenya. Sorry, Miss Kenya was my last pageant competition, beauty pageant competition. I made it to the finals, and then after that, now law school called, and life
Right,
happened.
right. Tell me, how would you say that experience shaped the way you understand visibility, influence, and public voice?
I loved the visibility aspect. I loved being on the runway. I loved the cameras, taking photography. And I think as a young woman growing up at that time, it was very important for your self-esteem, very important for your social life. And it served its purpose then. Looking back, because there was a little bit of me, I'd say, I wasn't as I don't want to say that I wasn't as confident, but I didn't have the skills. I didn't
Right.
have the skills to maximize on the opportunity then, where you are told now you go for more auditions, you go for the same way that someone can have an agent who then knows the industry much better. Then it's different to when you're doing it on your own and you lack the support and you lack even the protection for you to navigate that space. So that was one. And then secondly, of course, then given the industry is not what it is today, it's not what it's not. Look at them jamming up that one. The industry is today, not what it was then.
Right.
There are more structures, I believe. There's more publicity around it. There are even more pageants, so that makes it a good environment for a young person to continue to thrive. So I think it was both ways.
Right.
Lack of guidance, but also lack of structures. But then it served the purpose it was meant to serve at that particular time for me in terms of visibility and
Right.
building your self-development.
Uh-huh. So, did it prepare you in any way for the public leadership space that you occupy today?
I'd say yes, in the manner of giving me the confidence to get out there in the public and to engage, because then you realize that not many people have the skill, not many people have that confidence to go out and rally support for themselves, to go out and speak for themselves or for their causes. So then it, to a large extent, helped me in that manner.
Right. Many African constitutions promise citizen sovereignty, but in practice, most citizens do not understand the system that governs them. Is Africa suffering from a civic education crisis?
I'd say yes. I'd say yes, because majority of them have the constitution. Most of the let me just say all have constitutions. The challenge comes in their implementation,
Right.
right? So that even for us with what is considered a very progressive constitution, we are still struggling with its full implementation in the face of competing political, economic, and social interests. And that then speaks also to the challenges that many other countries are facing, even those that do not have a progressive constitution as the one that we have.
The question I would want to ask is, if citizens do not understand power, who controls power?
I'd, I'd say the powerful control power. Those who have, again, using the word, those who have the political influence, those who have the economic power, and also those who are socially mobile, then they are in a better position to influence decisions, to impact policy, and to influence the direction of the country and even the community. And
Right.
that is why it's often said that a good politician knows to keep his or her constituents illiterate or ignorant about a number of things, so that you find even amongst those who are well educated, for as long as they're ignorant about how the law works, for as long as they're ignorant about how systems and structures and even the constitution works, then they're very susceptible to manipulation, political manipulation.
Right. So you can say that people's illiteracy is the politician's currency.
Yes.
Damn. Okay. So
If you do not know how the law operates, how the constitution operates, and then you add poverty to it, then it makes you very good fodder.
that's really unfortunate. So across Africa, we have been seeing young people more politically aware, but also to a large extent disillusioned, right? From the Gen Z protests in Kenya to civic movements across the continent, what is this generation really saying to leadership?
I believe the current generation, the Gen Zs, a little bit of the millennials who are dissatisfied with the status quo, and even the Gen As, the generation alphas who are coming up, what they are saying is we want better. We have seen what the previous generations are doing, have been able to do, and most of it is not satisfactory when it comes to issues of governance, when it comes to how the economy should be managed, when it comes to issues of respecting and promoting human rights. They are very dissatisfied. And tied to that is they're very, like you rightly said, they're very disillusioned as well when it comes to systems and structures, and particularly political parties, which have for a long time been the platforms upon which people organize politically to address most of the issues that are affecting society. So that is why we are seeing a lot of young people now engaging politically through movements, not necessarily through political parties as it has been before. So that is why you have the Gen Z protest. You have a good number that have taken place within the African continent, and they are saying we do not trust the existing structures that have wielded political power and political influence, because they have not addressed the issues that we have. So now we are going to create our own. And this entails coming up with movements that can then mobilize us in our numbers, in our ideas, in our ideals, to help us achieve what we need to achieve as a generation. Of course, this has come with mixed results, as we saw with the Gen Z protests, because then that also boils down to knowledge and understanding of how to run successful movements for you to achieve what you need to achieve as a community.
I'm going to ask you if they are demanding reform or a complete reset. But before you answer that, what is the difference between a movement and a political party? And how do these play in the political space like it's happening now?
Put simply, the political party is one of the structures of governance that is backed legally through, like for us now in Kenya, we have an institution that deals with the registration of political parties. It's protected by law, so it's a proper governance structure that then now enables the party to undertake its political activities to then eventually influence governance and influence policy. But then now you have the movement, which most of them are not necessarily registered, like they can register a movement. They're not registered. It's a loose coming together of people sharing the same ideal, people sharing the same ideas, and people seeking to meet a particular goal or to achieve a particular goal. So it's not as defined as the political party, giving it the shape or form of how do I put it? Let's just leave it as coming together of people with ideas and ideals and to achieve a particular purpose, not registered as you would with a political party.
Right.
That makes it easy.
Yeah. So the next thing that I wanted is to know whether they are demanding for reform or a complete reset. And I also need to understand, when they've used the movement, how do they plug into the systems and the structures that are set so that they can be able to actually push for whatever it is they are speaking about, whether it's reform or it's the reset?
And from my understanding, and from what I read from social media, they're seeking a reset of how things are done. They're seeking a reset when it comes to transparency and accountability. They're seeking a reset when it comes to issues leadership. And we saw that starting from the agitations for a better finance bill that was presented in Parliament. And through them, they were saying the decisions that are being made, there isn't enough public participation, and then the individuals that they have elected, or that are elected, because I don't think majority of them have voted in the past election, but those who are in Parliament and are meant to represent them are not doing their job sufficiently for them to allow a bill like that even to get to Parliament and pass through different readings. So that is one part of them seeking the reset how we manage accountability issues, reset how we manage issues of transparency, issues of governance. And so that is what brings on board the calls for a new government.
A new regime.
Yes, a new regime and a new government coming 2027. And especially also given the human rights violations that majority of them witnessed. And for those who are affected are still seeking justice to date, I believe. So it's more of reset and wanting a new government that then, or a new regime, as you're saying, that is more responsive to their needs, that is more inclined to the needs of the common person, and especially of the young people, also given the fact that they are having a lot of issues as a generation in terms of their economic advancements, getting jobs and whatnot. So the issue comes in, which ties to your second question as to the how, right? So you have a movement, but it does not have structure. And
Right.
that is where the issue comes in, because changing a regime or changing a regime in particular, it's a political issue. So it requires political activities. It's a political question, so it requires political answers. And so I often say that advocacy and activism does not translate to votes. Yeah. So whatever it is that they do, whatever it is that they say, whatever activities that they engage in, must eventually translate to political activity, which is going to the ballot box or going to the ballot place or voting in particular when it comes to 2027, because the activism and the advocacy is not enough to change a regime constitutionally. That's one. Secondly, it's very important for them then to learn or to get knowledge on how politics works. And for the few that I've talked with, it's about interests, value systems, and interests, so that it's very easy for politicians, like we were talking about right from the start, it's very easy for politicians to come together for what is most important for them, to guard their political interests, to guard their economic interests, to guard their social interests. And it doesn't matter even if they're on the different sides of the political divide. So if you already know that about politics and you already know that about politicians, how then do you do the same mathematics on your end? Who are these people that you can bring on board as allies, then who can support you and help you and add to your numbers as you clamor for the change, as you clamor for the reset, as you move towards giving the political answer to the political question. Then third will be resourcing, right? Politics is expensive. It requires resources. And a good indication is when there's a lot of clamor for them within the Gen Z movement, for them to give money to a particular cause. You find majority of them do not have the political muscle, or rather the financial muscle to give money to political causes. And that is where now allies come in, that is where partners come in, and that is where interests come in. So for me, I believe it's those three, beyond the activism, answering the political questions, organizing politically, getting allies, regardless of whether they're in government or outside government, whether they're in government previously or serving in government at the moment. You need all kinds of allies for you to serve your interests. And then now, of course, the resources that you require for you to meet your political demands.
Right. You have worked inside government communication structures. So I want to ask you this bluntly. Do governments communicate to inform citizens or to manage them?
I think it's in informing, I believe it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You manage expectations, you manage reception, you manage expectations, and that's the whole basis, I think, of putting your business out there. So government communication and a little bit of political communication, I think, serves the same purpose. In my experience, it's necessary for the government then to have a well-structured, a well-equipped, and a well-managed communication system, because regardless of what we feel, or rather regardless of what the citizens may feel about the government at that particular time, there are still certain things that are working. Not everything is a lost cause. There are certain things that are working, social services that are still being provided and for which they need information on or about as they go about their day-to-day activities. I'll give you an example during the COVID period, during disasters, during times of joy, when there are certain good things that have happened in the government. It's important for the citizens to know, not to then help with that sense of pride that sense of patriotism, and also for them to be able to access government services.
Without cutting you short, and I'm just raising this concern, in whose responsibility does informing then the public fall on? Because sometimes there have been people out there who feel that it is not the president who needs to travel to a place to speak to people about what the government is doing, because we have the CSs, we have the PSs, we have the government spokespeople. In whose hands is this responsibility?
I'll give it a brief background of where we've come from when it comes to government communication.
Go ahead.
Because before, the only institution we had that could communicate issues government was the presidency, and for a long time, especially during Moi regime and even the pre-Moi regime, it was done a lot by the president. So it was only the president who could speak about what government was doing, the government plans, projects, and initiatives. And then tied to that was also KBC, which was the only, what we call the
media house.
Government media house, yeah? It was only it was the only media house then that the government could use to communicate. But then now many things happen. One is the liberalization of communication and platforms where citizens can get information, so that if we are going to rely on only one body or one individual to communicate, then you find it becomes very difficult. By the time you're communicating, then information is already stale. And a lot of misinformation and disinformation has also taken place in the public space. So then that called for a change even in the way government itself communicates. That is one. Then secondly, also the fact that one person cannot be everywhere at the same time. And It's also important that ministries and other government agencies are able to communicate so that the information gets to the public in real time. So then that necessitates the decentralization of government communication, so that the more ministries you have, you give these ministries the opportunity also to communicate what they need to communicate, what it is that they are doing in terms of their programs and their budgets. Now, the challenge comes in terms of the structure, how you structure this government communication. What we have right now is you have the president's communication, which now is a presidential press. During my time, it was called the Presidential Strategic Communication Unit, which now communicates what the president is doing. Yeah, the president went out on a visit. This is what the president held a cabinet meeting. The president is signed, or either is signing or is about to sign, or will sign a particular policy on an agreement. So that focuses mostly on presidential communication. But then now when it comes to government communication, sometime in early, was it 2020, I can't remember the dates exactly, but then we established the Office of the Government Communication, which then now becomes the central communication unit on issues government, so that all the ministries then are able to send information to the Office of the Government spokesperson, and is able to communicate on behalf of the government, so that there's presidential activities and presidential communication, and then now there's government communication. So the structure of it is there on paper, but then of course now there are challenges of coordination. Yeah, so that then, do we have something as clean as what it is in South Africa, for example, where all communication goes to the institution responsible for government communication, or the government spokesperson? So the philosophy of it is very, very good. The structure is very good. Now I think it's the implementation. And there have been various policy attempts. I think there are a number of policies that are being finalized on at this moment as we speak to streamline all these processes to ensure then that government is speaking in one voice, and then there are very credible and consistent voices that are communicating government plans, government initiatives, and government programs.
I kind of feel like during the time of Kibaki, that communication was already working, like it was streamlined and it was functional. At what point did we lose that? And now we have all this disorganized communication, like even the ministers or the CSs seem not to know what the presidency wants until the presidency has to be the one that is coming to speak. I mean, the CSs are in that space, I understand, if I'm thinking right. But then why is the lower level of government not able to communicate effectively?
It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress given where we have come from in terms of government communication. And that's the call for policy initiatives to streamline the process. I agree with you that from a citizen standpoint, it does look disorganized. Yeah, to an extent that you have very many people speaking on behalf of the government, and sometimes it comes out conflicting. The ideal situation would be then you have a ministry or a cabinet secretary. They are able to speak on particular things that are affecting or informing their ministries.
Yeah.
But then there are other important national-looking issues that perhaps then need that more coordinated approach to government communication. And that is where now the office of the government spokesperson comes in terms of the system and the structure to give it that more overarching, or rather an umbrella.
Yeah.
An umbrella institution that can then now communicate on government issues. So the structures are there, the systems are there. What then is required is better coordination for the benefit of the citizen in terms of government communication.
Right. I feel like I want to take you back to something that you had said earlier when we were speaking about movements and parties. And you also said that politics is very expensive. And I recently heard Senator Edwin Sifuna saying that he has the people, and so he might not need all that money, because as long as he goes out there and people come and listen and they buy the idea, he doesn't have to spend too much money. All that he needs is sound system, a platform, and a date, and the people come. What do you say to that?
Yeah. I'd say if he's able to pull it off, well and good. But politics still requires some money. And you've rightly said, he's saying he doesn't need all that money, but he still needs some, which of course then speaks to the inequality that comes in within politics, and even for most politicians. We've seen young people who are vying for MCA, and they've been there, they're already in parliament, some even were in the previous parliaments, and they didn't need to use a lot of money for their constituency. So it depends on the levels that you're campaigning in, and how much they require. It's very different. Someone campaigning for MCA, he has a very small geography or a small area to cover. Someone campaigning for senator, it's a whole county. Someone campaigning for MP, it's a constituency.
Right.
When it gets to national, it's also much wider, and it's not necessarily money that you're giving your team. It boils down to transport costs. If you're going to move from Nairobi to Kakamega, that is a cost, fuel and whatnot. It boils down to putting up billboards. If you're able to afford it, and you know how much it costs in Kenya to put up a
It's
billboard
crazy.
for whatever cause. It's a lot of money. If you want even to print your flyers, if you have a team, because remember, one of the things that people say is if you do not, those who have been in the political circles, you have agents, yeah? If you have agents and you don't pay them enough for them to move across the country and to mobilize, then it goes to affect your outcome or the
Right.
oversight on final outcome. So depending on how big your team is, depending on how far you need to travel to campaign, that is what then is going to determine how much you need for your political campaign. And granted, depending on the reception, depending on the public, then you might not need a lot if you're able to campaign. Like now, he's campaigning digitally. Then that might be able to help him in terms of getting the numbers without necessarily spending a lot of money. So it's not as much, but politicians and politics still needs some form of financial resources to
Right.
help you achieve what you need.
Do you see the digital platform reaching a critical mass that can give someone who is campaigning on that platform a win?
Goes back to what we talked about initially. Activism and advocacy and social media engagement does not amount to political, or rather does not amount specifically to voting, right? So you can have 100 people who liking your page, but are they individuals who are at the age of voting, 18 and above? Have they taken their voters card? And after that, are they knowledgeable on your campaign and your manifesto so that they can also help you spread the message and bring more people on board? And most importantly, will they wake up on that day to brave the sun, to brave the rain, to go and vote? Or are they going to stay back home, continue communicating on social media, and you lose at the ballot? So
Right.
political questions need political answers. And social media advocacy might not be the political answer that a serious candidate would want to rely on come 2027.
Right. I want to talk about leadership versus celebrities. Africa today has a lot of visible leaders, but fewer serious institution builders. Do you think our political culture rewards popularity over competence? And how dangerous is that for democracy?
Yes, it does. It does. It rewards popularity, and that, like I said, that is one of the things that a good politician knows how to work around. Yeah, so that you know how to get numbers, you know how to speak to the community. And I'm glad you've asked it, because I was just doing some research on it in terms of intellectualism versus politics. Yeah, so that you have a very smart individual who has a good manager, he has the track record, a good leader, they've led good institutions, but they're not able to translate that to political leadership. They're not able to translate that to going out to the communities and speaking with the people and being seen as aligning with the ideals and the ideologies of the communities they want to represent. So that then you'll find someone who's able to get there, not as educated, not as exposed, not not much of a leader, but is able to speak the language of the community, is able to speak the language of of that particular constituency. He's definitely going to get the votes. So what I was looking at or looking into is how can an intellectual or someone who's considered an elite then bridge that gap to an extent that he's able to speak the language of the voter and get the numbers and get the votes without necessarily losing his intellectualism, if I could say that. So
You know, the reason I'm laughing is the question that has been asked. I think I've seen it on social media. I think it's the same Sifuna who asked No. I think it was former deputy Rigathi Gachagua who asked, or it's Sifuna, whoever, whichever one of them asks, if you're a PhD holder, why are you hanging out with a class 2 dropout?
Yes.
Could they be trying to bridge, like you mix the PhD and the class 2, you meet somewhere in the middle?
Exactly. Remember, we talked about political interest. Yeah. There's something the PhD holder needs, and there's something that the class 2 is providing. There's something that the class 2 dropout needs that the PhD holder has that is able to offer him or her.
Right.
So it's about interests. How do you match these two interests for you to get what it is that you want? So even now, as we are moving to the election season, you're going to see the electoral environment attracting all kinds of individuals. There are those who are PhD holders. There are those who are class 2 dropouts. There are those who are in between. They all have manifestos. They all have goals, personal goals and political goals for themselves. But do not be surprised that it's perhaps the class 2 dropout who's going to who's going to carry the day, because this class 2 dropout, what the people say, ni mtu wa watu, you know, he comes and eats with us, he's approachable, he understands our issues, being a dropout, and you know, all that communication that then he's able to take advantage of to rally the masses. And that, of course, then also points to what we talked about earlier. No, we haven't touched about it, but we highlighted it a bit in terms of a good politician knows his constituency. And majority of the people who then a class 2 dropout knows he can speak their language are those who are poor.
Right.
They are poor. They are either living below the dollar, and the individuals who don't have as much education as they would want. There are people who are not as exposed. So that makes it very easy for them to be manipulated. Yeah, because again, politics in Kenya and politics in Africa, it's more survival. Yeah. So that for you are seeing a politician as the gateway to food. You are seeing a politician as a gateway to education for your children. And whatever decisions this politician makes affects you directly. It affects how you access education. It affects how you access medical care. So you hold politics in such high regard, and you pedestalize politicians, because then they are an answer to your survival needs. Yeah. While in other systems, politics maintains systems and maintains structures and maintains the society. It's not an issue of poverty and survival. So a PhD holder that does not understand poverty and survival will lose to that class 2 dropout who understands poverty and survival, and how this then translates to answers the political question. So perhaps in that instance, what the PhD holder is looking for from the class 2 dropout is how to translate those two issues to get votes.
That's pretty funny. Your book, She Leads, focuses on women in leadership, but many African societies still struggle with women in authority. We had it the other day when the president was stopped before he ended his speech by Honorable Cecily Mbarire, and he kind of hesitated to imagine that she was going to ask a question. Do women in leadership face structural barriers or cultural resistance?
It's both. It's social, it's cultural, it's economic, and it's political. We have made progress, yes, in the Kenyan situation in particular. Now with what we had with the free primary education and subsidized secondary education, you have more young girls going to school, and then they're able then to transition to secondary and later on to college. So that has helped. You have policy interventions that are meant now to promote affirmative action, to ensure that more women get into power, more women are employed. You also have the constitution that is providing for the two-thirds gender rule. So there's a lot of effort that has been put towards ensuring that women have equal access to opportunities when it comes to leadership, when it comes to education, when it comes to healthcare, all these things that perhaps were not there to the same extent or at the same level before. But that does not mean that the barriers have no longer exists. Women, you still find some girls who are still experiencing FGM as much as it's outlawed. They're still being, the practice is still being undertaken in certain parts of the country secretly. You have young girls who are still being married off, and early marriages in certain parts of the country where the law is not being implemented as it should. You have women who are still facing sexual and gender-based violence, including in their places of work. There are still issues of women being paid less than men, including in our societies. Then when it comes to politics, the constitutional provisions for electing women representatives have helped women get into parliament. But then you still have a lot of structural and cultural issues that prevent women from actively and meaningfully engaging even in those high levels of governance. Where if you listen to some of the conversations, you have women who you're not allowed, it's almost criminal for you to get to work pregnant. Yeah, you have male employers and even some companies that are still discriminating against women based on them on their pregnancy at that particular time. So a lot has been done, and a lot more needs to be done to ensure that women are able to get to that level where now we are saying that there's gender parity. And even when you look at it from a political perspective, now that we are going to the election period, issues of political violence, the extent to which women are impacted, and whether women are even able to participate safely in elections in the face of political violence. Is it that women also, given what we see, is it that women also then will be allowed to have their own armies of young men who then are able to protect them during the political season? Because that appears to be where the kind of conversations and the kind of activities that now we are beginning to make normal or to normalize.
Must violence be there? Really?
It should not. It should not, our politics should not be a politics of violence, because then we speak about free and fair elections, and part of free and fair political activities is also creating a favorable environment where all political actors can then engage and exercise their political rights without fear, right? And so creating an environment that is violent then goes against the constitutional provisions of free and fair political environment, especially when you have groups of people who then are not able to participate in the same violence. They don't have the masses, they don't have the money, and they don't have the muscle for them to engage in that particular way. So I'm hoping this is one thing that will be resolved before 2027. It should have been resolved yesterday, so that we are not seeing goons having an easy time terrorizing citizens.
Sometimes guarded by police or on the side with the police. Like, that doesn't even make sense to me at all.
Yeah.
Right. Between the cultural resistance or barriers and the structural barriers, what must change first?
What is left now, from my understanding, what is left now is the culture, is the cultural
barrier.
It's there's a cultural barrier because the laws are there. We even have a constitution that has provided that and tried to level the playing field. It's there. You have policies and institutions that are now looking into gender equality, issues of gender equality and gender parity. What now is left is the culture, where now we are able to see each other as equals, and particularly in access to opportunities, not equal in all spheres. Equality in terms of access to opportunities. And that starts at home. Yeah. What conversations are we having with our young girls? What conversations are we having with our young men when it comes to issues of gender equality or even gender parity? It goes to the institutions in schools, it goes to the universities, it goes to the workplaces. What kind of conversations are we having amongst ourselves as adults, as youth, as children? What are the generational lessons that we are passing down to the next, to the young men and to the young women? And then also when it comes to issues of sexual and gender-based violence, you saw a lot of conversations, and we've had, there was a season that it was just too much, Young women were being killed in the city, in their homes, and you could see the kind of conversations that were emanating from it. A lack of understanding of rights and human rights. Second, a lack of understanding of how institutions operate. And then third, just pockets of individuals who think it right to take the life of a woman just because she is a woman. Yeah. So taking those opportunities to have those conversations to then make society a safer place for our girls and for our women, very important. So it's more cultural than systemic, more cultural, and culture takes time to change and requires intentional and strategic conversations for it to move from what it is.
You said something interesting there that caught my eye or my interest. When you spoke about knowing their rights, is it the violated or the person that is violating them that lacks the understanding of the human rights?
It plays out both ways, right? For the person who's violated, then knowing your rights ensures then that you're able to spot these violations early. Yeah. For example, when we talk about issues of assault and battery, before it even gets to murder or attempted murder, if you talk about assault and battery, just someone threatening you with violence, talking to you in a manner that's threatening to you, that's already assault. That's already a violation of your right. And if you do not know, one, that your rights have been violated, and if you do not know how to access justice, for you to get justice for yourself and even for your children and for your family, then that becomes a detriment for you, yeah,
Right.
because you do not understand. Yeah, so it starts from even just the basics of it, because by the time it's getting to the capital offenses, we always say that there are these benchmarks, these small benchmarks. Someone was angry and they shouted at you, someone hit you the first time, the second time. What are the legal, beyond the cultural issues, what are the legal issues that emanate from that encounter? So getting to understand the difference. Assault, someone doing threatening you, yeah, and hit you, and stab you, and box you, that is assault. By the time it gets to battery, where someone actually does, actually hits you, actually pinches you, actually boxes you, there's a whole difference. And then now, if you've been violated, how then do you access justice? Where do you go to? Yeah, how do you package your case? If you do not have the money, how then do you get access to pro bono
Services.
So that is one. Yeah, that is one hand of legal and constitutional literacy. The other part now that deals with the person, the violator, or the criminal in this instance, he or she there's also ignorance at that point where someone says that I was angry, so that is why I assaulted. Yeah. Something was stolen from me, so that is why I killed this person. Of course, then the lack of legal knowledge then also applies. So that then without proper legal counsel, then you can be convicted for murder, first degree murder, like we normally say it, or for manslaughter, or for attempted murder, all these other things. So knowledge of the law plays both ways for the victim and for the one who violated the victim. And it's
Right.
especially important for young people. I'll give you an example for when it comes to when young people who are tried or incarcerated for sexual violence, for rape. Yeah, because that's a discussion that's always been out here. You have young people now who perhaps based on lack of parental guidance or just peer pressure, they take photographs of each other, and share it amongst themselves. That's already a total violation. That's already against the law because you're a child, but then despite the other child being a minor, you're also participating in sharing pornographic materials of a minor. But they do not know that, they're young children and they're growing and they do not have that legal knowledge. And then it's worse now when you are young children and then you begin to engage in sexual activity. You are both minors.
Right.
So you are defiling each other. For in their eyes, then they're thinking it's puppy love, but there are legal ramifications to it, right?
Oh,
So it's very legal education, very important to each and every member of the society for their own protection and also for making the country and our community safer.
I am sure we are going to dig deep into that later. Probably not on this episode, but maybe in future, because I've heard stories about kids who've been involved in that kind of situation, and the boy is the one who gets tried as the criminal. I don't know, and both of them are minors. Anyway, you've been inside the machinery of government. What is the one thing about power that ordinary citizens misunderstand the most?
That's the first time I'm encountering that question. What they misunderstand. Positive or negative?
Either way, because, those that are powerful, that are in power, that are seeking power, seem to understand it. And we say those are the politicians up there for the most part. But there is the mwananchi who is down here. There must be something about that power that they don't understand. And well, nasikia siku hizi hatuwezi kuwa bila power. So what is
I'd
this?
say in that, yeah.
Yeah, so what is this
In
thing
that
about
context,
power that an ordinary citizen misunderstands the most?
in that context, I'll say power, in the context you're speaking of, I'll say power makes life easier. Yeah, makes life easier for those who are pursuing it, and it's very dependent on the system that you are operating in. Yeah, if you're wielding power in a system that is accountable and transparent, then you have particular limitations, yeah, to how much of that power and what you can do without power. While power generally makes life easier for you, but in more accountable institutions, then there are limits to it.
Right.
What makes it even most attractive or even more attractive in systems like ours is that it not only makes life easier for you, but it also acts as a source of protection for you, right? and a source of advancement for
Right.
you. So that oftentimes power, very few politicians and very few leaders pursue power for the benefit of the common person. They pursue benefit for their personal interests, because we've elevated and pedestalized political power to an extent where it is what you use to gain wealth. Yeah. While in other societies you gain wealth through industry,
Right.
manufacturing, what education, going to school. That is how you make wealth. But in our system, you gain wealth through getting into politics. So that is why, like we started before, you have even PhD people, intellectuals,
Right.
people who are doing really well, people who are doing really well in their areas of influence, still pursuing politics, because the environment has not made it easy for the PhD holder to thrive in the industry. Yeah. As a PhD holder, you're not thriving. You are going to the streets to demonstrate. You're not able to pay your bills, while a class two politician is able to do that comfortably.
Right.
And it's because they're in politics. So politics pays more than industry. So one, it's a source of wealth. And like I said, it's also a source of protection, because in systems that are not as democratic and as accountable, then you use power then to protect your wealth, as we have seen with a majority of politicians. Yeah, you used dubious ways to acquire your wealth, and so now you have to stay in power for you to protect that wealth, because for as long as you're able to wield influence over institutions that require you to be accountable, then you're not going to be held accountable.
Right.
That's what I was looking for. And then third as well, the society in our system, we've also really pedestalized politicians so that they do not queue like the common person. They do not wait in traffic like
Yeah.
the rest of us, and their life is just much easier
Right.
than the rest of the community. So I don't even think it's a misunderstanding on the part of the citizens. I believe that they understand. They understand how privileged and the privilege that comes with politics. So that is why they also hang on to politicians and continue this cycle of pedestalizing a politician to the detriment of institutions,
Right.
systems, and even the constitution.
That sends me straight to the next question, where we speak about ethics. Many leaders speak about integrity, yet corruption remains widespread. Is corruption primarily a moral failure or a system failure?
It's first a moral failure, and those are some of the things that now with my work, my writing, my speaking, my working with young people, then is seeking to reverse, because it's all about values and value systems.
Right.
If as an individual, stealing is not an issue for you, because that is what corruption is. It's theft.
Yeah.
You are stealing from others. And if you're in a home or in an environment where there are no consequences for stealing, then it's something that you're going to carry on into adulthood, and it's something that you're going to carry on even in your work, at school, wherever it is. So it's about values and value systems, right from when you're a young person, the kind of values that have guided you into adulthood, and then now the kind of values that as a society then we ascribe to. And I'm sure you've heard about the Constitution speaking about the values and principles of governance at Article 10. So that at the time of its drafting, the drafters of the Constitution made it very clear that we can be from different tribes, we can be from different classes, we can be of different genders, we can be from different parts of the country. But then the values that are going to guide us as a Kenyan community, as a Kenyan society, are what are listed at Article 10 of the Constitution. And transparency and accountability and equity and patriotism form part of those values and systems. So now, we have the constitutional foundations, we have the legal foundations, we have the institutional foundations. But if the people entrusted to implement these laws then do not share in those values, then it becomes a problem because then they subvert justice. If you're in the judiciary and you're corrupt, your value systems do not align to the values that are in the constitution, then it follows then that you're going to make decisions that propagate theft of public funds.
Right.
If you're a member of parliament and you do not share in the values that talked about in the constitution, then it follows that you're going to pass laws that then give more power to thieves in our society, and it moves as well to the executive. And of course, the vice then goes to the lower echelons of society because people learn and people see. If a leader, someone as powerful as an MP, for instance, can get away with theft of public funds, then what is it, this 50,000 that I'm stealing from my employer? It's not so much of a value issue. And the unfortunate thing is our children are seeing, the next generation is seeing. I think there was a time when a study was done by PwC and young people were asked what they thought about corruption. And they said that corruption is okay for as long as you do not get caught. The challenge is that the challenge is that you get caught. And imagine they were teenagers, about 17 to 19. So if they've already seen that there's no consequence to theft, yeah, and they do not see it as something that's offensive to a communal value. So you can only imagine. And then they've seen what politics can do for them. Yeah. So what will prevent this young person, in the event that there's no intervention, what will prevent this young person from pursuing the same path or walking down the same path that the day-to-day leaders that they see walked and acting in the same way?
Right. That's crazy. So there's the part of this conversation that is the citizen responsibility, and we often blame governments. But let me flip the question. Are African citizens also responsible for the quality of leadership that they elect and tolerate?
I'd say yes. I'd say yes to a very large extent because we've moved from a place where, and I'll look at it from the Kenyan perspective, we moved to a place where we are going to say that our citizens are ignorant. We are no longer in that age of ignorance, to the extent that you have more educated people within our public and political spaces. And now for younger people who are coming into power, and even for younger people who are getting into the workforce, education has really helped in terms of exposure and self-awareness and community awareness. So that even now, with the proliferation of information all over the place, at any given point, you know what's happening in your community, you know what's happening in your country, you know the kind of conversations that are going on. You cannot say that you are ignorant about politics and you are ignorant about the mischief that's going on around your country. What then would determine how, with your education and with your exposure, then it will be your personal interests. And if your interests are pegged on your survival, then it's likely that you're going to vote against your own values and your own wishes. So that then if a politician comes to you and tells you, I'd like for you to vote for me and I'll pay your university education, or vote for me and I'll set you guys up for a shop or a complex, whatever it is. So it's not so much, in my perspective, it's not so much about ignorance. It's more about survival. Yeah. For me, it boils down to the survival aspects, and poverty, which plays a very big role in how voters and citizens then engage. And of course, then that is a very big problem because we are not able to strengthen our systems, yeah, to the extent that you are not engaging in political activity out of manipulation, but you are going out there to exercise your political rights in a free and fair environment. If you have hospitals that are working, then a politician is not going to come to you and bribe you with a hospital.
Yeah.
If you have an education system that is functioning and is affordable and accessible to even those living in the slums, then it's very easy not to be manipulated with bursaries. You know, if you have a justice system that works, then you don't have to rely on a politician to speak on your behalf in the event that there's a legal or constitutional issue that
Right.
that was. So where I'm moving to in my understanding of citizens and governance, where I'm moving to is one where it's no longer about, it's not so much about ignorance, yeah, but it's about addressing the issues of survival. If you're giving them information, give them information that then goes towards strengthening institutions, not keeping them pegged on politics and politicians.
Right. I think they like to maintain that. Excuse me. I think they like to maintain that so that they still remain in control.
Yes. Because if you voting for me is pegged on, if you voting on me is pegged on your children going to school, of course I'm going to ensure that I maintain this. There's some. Speaking of which, there's something I was reading on social media. There's a lady who had started taking children to high school, gathering money and taking them to high school. And the member of parliament was not very happy about it because then it was bringing questions as to why his constituents are remaining illiterate. And you know, for him that time, his children are abroad, yeah, studying in Ivy League schools. But then now it's very important for him to ensure that the constituents then perhaps do not get 100% of what they need to get, so that then they remain dependent on him
Right.
for the solutions to their survival problems. And the solution oftentimes is pegged on the voting. I remember there was one also in Nyanza he either withdrew scholarships that he had paid. He'd gone for a one term, and then he'd paid school fees for. He'd paid school fees for some of the children of his constituencies. Then the moment he lost, he wrote letters.
Evil.
Because he was saying, I am doing all this, I'm doing so much for you, and you can't see it. Remain there with your children, with your poverty. So that's normally the challenge. They're going to give you what they need to give you for that particular period.
Right.
And in the event that they don't go back, they're going to draw it. They're going to withdraw the support. Compared to if you agitate for change, if you agitate for strong systems that do not keep you, it keeps you dependent on your taxes, it keeps you dependent on your voice.
Yeah.
As an individual and as a community, then that makes it much, much easier than being beholden to individuals.
Right.
Being beholden to the system.
Okay, cool. That's a funny one. Sandra, I wanted to finish these sentences honestly. The biggest lie African citizens have been told about democracy is
it quick fire? But I have to go through. Okay, ask it.
Yeah. So the biggest lie African citizens have been told about democracy is
that their voices don't matter.
Does it?
It does matter.
Does it count?
It does count.
Has it counted?
Yes, it has counted. And it is still counting.
You know, my county of origin is Embu. My constituency of origin is Mbeere North. Go back to that question again and tell me how the voices of the people of Mbeere North counted in the just recent concluded by-election?
Their voices matter. Their voices count, and they have an opportunity now to shout even louder. Come 2027. The in between shenanigans then should act as an even greater motivator for them to be louder come 2027.
Do you know how many of those people right now don't see the value of even going to vote at all?
And that will be their detriment. They will have played into the game as the system would have wanted them to play.
What's their recourse?
If you are faced, or if you're interacting with a bully, the bully banks on you getting tired. And then allowing him to continue, allowing he or she to continue doing whatever it is they were doing. But if you continue to stand your ground, one of you eventually will have to get tired. So in this instance, it's the citizen and the voter who has to choose whether it is them who's going to get tired. And them getting tired is to their detriment. They are getting tired, and losing hope is to their detriment.
Okay. Well, they're in court. Let's see how it turns out. But I can assure you, because I've listened to a lot of people, many of whom have told me that they went out very confident that their vote was going to count. And of course, there's even among the society young people who feel that it is not the vote that counts, but who counts the votes. I don't know how true that holds and how long that is going to hold, because it's important for all of this to get to a place where it's credible, it's fair, and every vote counts, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I do agree, and that one worked. That one worked well. Has worked well for the individuals that were intent on subverting the course of justice. And it was a narrative that carried the day before we had the 2010 constitution.
Right.
And I think it's been very evident with now the presidential elections, nullifying a whole presidential election. At least we have an institution or a judiciary of last recourse compared to what the take for instance even Tanzania, for example. After the election, their IBC, their version of IBC gives the final verdict, right? After that, they are not able, because they do not have the institutional infrastructure. After their version of the IBC has given the verdict, they cannot
go to court.
They cannot contest it. They cannot contest
Right.
it. But we thank God for the Kenyan constitution, that whether it is a presidential election, whether it is an MP, a senator, or a gubernatorial election, we have institutions and systems then through which the citizens are able to pursue justice. And that is why, for me, I keep insisting, let us work towards having strong and credible institutions. It's better for our society. It's better for our engagements in the political space, in the economic space, even in the cultural space. And it's a good safeguard for the future of the next generations. So let them not lose hope. Let them not lose hope at all. We are past the stage, or past the environment where elections could not be contested. We are moving into a place where we have judicial recourse in the event that a political party or a political player feels aggrieved by the results.
Right. So there is that part that you've answered, which is perfectly understood, that they can go to court. But what about the case where this manipulation has been by way of not voter suppression in the sense of violence or extreme numbers of police in a polling station, but where money has been poured, literally, like they say about 700 million. I don't know how true that is. It's alleged that about 700 million was spent for the Mbeere North by-elections, to the extent where people are given food, are given money, and they are influenced to vote in a certain way. Where does that play in this whole equation?
It still plays to the free and fair, the need for elections to be free and fair. Free in the essence that it's not only the absence of violence, but free to the extent that the voters are exercising their free will. They're able to choose their candidate, and they're able to vote based on their own perceptions, based on their own ideas, based on their own goals, exercising their free will. It's not by intimidation. It's not by money being poured to influence the outcome. It's not by the opponents being suppressed. Their opponents, political opponents being suppressed. So that's another aspect of it being free. It's not just the absence of violence. It's creating an environment where the voters are able to exercise their free will as they conduct their political activities. The fairness comes in when, if you are both contesting for a political seat, and you have 700 million and I only have 200 million, then the playing field is not
balanced.
even. So the playing field is not fair. It's not fair to all the players. And so that is one of the reasons why I think there's a law to it. And I'm forgetting the institution, but there's a law to it that then is meant to curb how much politicians are able to spend during a political season.
Right.
And the period within which they're even able to campaign, and the extent to which they're able to campaign, so that then the level field is there's a level field where all the political players are playing on there's fairness.
Right.
Yeah? There's fairness as they're going to the polls. So it's both free and fair, not necessarily creating a hostile environment, but also creating an environment where the voters are able to exercise their free will, and then the playing field is level for all the political parties. So that is something that I'm sure as soon as or when evidence is presented, then the parties to the case
Right.
or their counsel can argue it out in front of the court.
Right. You spoke about the quick fire, and I'm going to come to the quick fire now. But before I go into it, I'd like for you to speak to people that have been influenced before and have lost hope. Because I can tell you, after the Member of Parliament by-elections, followed in Mbeere North, the MCA by-elections, and a similar repeat of the same thing that happened during the MP thing happened. So there's a lot of people that are disoriented about the whole idea of elections. And so I want you to speak to somebody. I need you to speak to them and show them where there is hope. And from what you've just said about the law, is there anybody that is implementing such caveats in terms of like how much you can spend? I know here in the US they do very, very seriously. Like even contributing to a fund, to a politician, there is a certain amount, a maximum amount that you can contribute as an individual. So I want you to speak to someone, tell them why there is hope, and if there is anybody who is implementing this law.
We have come from so far in terms of our democracy. As a younger Kenyan, I do not want to imagine what my life would have been living in the colonial period, living during the Moi regime. And reading what's happened and the kind of progress that others have sacrificed their time, their energy, and even their lives for to get us to where we have a new constitution. And we have more freedoms than we had before. and we are exercising our rights even more boldly than the previous generations did. So we've made progress, and that is a 50-year progress, you know. And were it not for the sacrifices of those who came before us, then we will not be enjoying much of what we are enjoying now. And so for me, I often say that much of what I am doing, it might not be, I might not see the immediate results, but I will have contributed to a better place for my children and my children's children. And it's the same thing, perhaps, that we could look at it. If it's not giving you the immediate results as you would want, then you're actually contributing to bettering the democratic space that the next generations will be living in or living through, just as those in the previous times have. And so even going to the election period, standing by your values, standing by your ideals, doing what is right, it does not go to waste. So that even if your candidate does not win, then you even have more moral authority to hold them accountable once they get into office. Because oftentimes, again, we imagine that it all ends at the ballot. The ballot is just one of the platforms and the avenues through which, as citizens, then we can achieve our goals and dreams when it comes to issues politics. Once someone has been put in office, then it still gives you an opportunity to do the advocacy,
Yeah.
to continue to engage politically and hold them accountable. So the worst thing you will do, as I said previously, is to give up and sit back. Because you not only have lost at the ballot, but you'll have lost for the next 5 years, waiting for another ballot voting engagement for you to imagine that that's the only way that you can hold someone accountable. In the event that we vote come 2027 and my candidate or my candidates do not win, then between 2027 and the next election, I have all moral authority to say, one, I did not vote for you because of ABCD. And based on what the engagements were and what the conversations are, or still are, I'm still expecting this from you as a member of parliament. I'm expecting this from you as an MC. I'm expecting this from you as a president. Whatever caliber, whatever cadre of leadership you would like to engage. So it's not about just that one activity. It's having the knowledge and having the space and having the opportunities to continue engaging meaningfully in issues, politics, and governance within your community.
Awesome. Okay, now the quick fire.
Yes.
Leadership or popularity?
Leadership.
Institutions or personalities?
Institutions.
Protest or policy engagement?
Policy engagement.
Civic education or political activism?
Civic education.
Hopeful or worried about Africa's future?
Very hopeful.
Okay, so let me ask you, if you were speaking directly to African political leaders today, what uncomfortable truth would you tell them about how they govern their citizens?
The uncomfortable truth I tell them about how they govern their citizens is majority of them are in office or are in office and are leading their people.
Let's speak. Say it to them. Like, I want you to speak like you're speaking to them directly. Give them this. Yeah. So don't put them in the third person.
Okay. Okay, fine. I'll tell them to love your people. Love your people, serve your people with integrity. Give them the opportunities to actualize themselves. Focus on the next generations and ensure then that you're doing what is best, not just for you and your family, you're doing what is best for your country, you're doing what is best for your community, and you're doing what is best for the next generations.
Nice. Let me drop this one right there. Nice. Now, when future generations look back at this moment in Africa, what will they say we got right, and what will they say we failed to confront?
What they'll say we got right is we tried. Yeah? We tried our best with what we had at that particular time. And I'm looking at it from what's happening with our neighbors. Yeah. You cannot say that generation after generation, community after community have not tried. They have tried with what they have, and they've received some element of success. It might not be what they envision for themselves, but it's something that then now the next generation or the next generations must then build on and build upon to achieve those ideals that we want for the African continent.
Right.
What they will say that we failed on is to sustain the fight or sustain the advocacy, and especially when it comes to protecting our resources. And it's not just the mineral resources, it's also the human resources in terms of how we have safeguarded the interests of our professionals, how we have made the environment, the economic environment favorable for them to stay home and to develop home. That then they will say that we have failed them in that sense, so that we have more of their fathers and even their grandfathers leaving home, going to find refuge elsewhere, going to find jobs elsewhere, while they should be staying at home and making home better. And perhaps that will be their rallying call, or what they mobilize around, because the previous generations have worked hard to make waves in the political, in the socio-political space. Perhaps for the next generations, then now the assignment will be to move Africa to the next economic platform.
Awesome. What's your parting shot?
My parting shot is civic education. I don't know if it's visible.
It is.
Yes, civic education.
Right.
Knowledge is power. It's a cliche, but knowledge is power. For those of you who are in Kenya or intend to work, live, stay in Kenya, get yourselves a copy of the Teens Guide to the Constitution of Kenya. It's written Teens Guide, but I've had a good number of adult teens read it to get to understand the Constitution. You cannot defend what you do not know. You cannot promote what you do not know. You cannot embrace what you do not understand.
Right.
Our Constitution is considered a transformative constitution, because then it is meant to address most of these issues that we are discussing today: the political challenges, the social challenges, the economic challenges, the cultural issues. The Constitution is meant to address them. But it's only by knowing that then we are able to get out there informed and equipped enough to hold our leaders accountable, and enough for us to engage meaningfully in the development of our country and in the strengthening of our institutions. So get yourself a copy of the Teens Guide to the Constitution of Kenya. It's a simplified version of our Constitution.
Right.
And of course, then you can also have yourself a copy of this Constitution for more information. But equip yourself, educate yourself, and use this as a tool and an instrument for change in your communities and for the benefit of your country.
Before I let you go, Sandra, the book that you're holding is very powerful. A lot of people have not had an opportunity to actually read the Constitution because of the language that it is written in. And to a lot of people, when you hear Article A, B, C, D, section, sijui what, subsection, sijui what, already you shut down, right?
Yeah.
How accessible is your book? Maybe to those that are not in Kenya, is it possible to get it? And the reason I'm asking about that. I'm in the diaspora, all right? But by virtue of me being in the diaspora, a lot of my family also depend on me. They listen to me. I kind of have a lead voice in terms of like pointing them out into what direction we should go. So are people in the diaspora able to get your book? And secondly, do you think the Constitution should be embedded in the school syllabus?
I'd say how they're able to get it. It's currently at Nuria store. I'm sure you've heard of Nuria
Yes,
store.
I have.
It's one of the beloved stores in Kenya, bookstores in Kenya.
Right.
And so they can do diaspora deliveries. I know that there are some that they've done in the event that you make your order, that can be organized.
Okay.
Or for them to make the delivery. So it's very available. And even for those in Kenya, if you can get it and then you travel with it, very, very nice. So you talked of it being the Constitution being available in schools. The Teens Guide to the Constitution itself is already KICD approved. That's the Kenya Institution of Curriculum Development. So it's already KICD approved. That means then it should be, and it's able to be used in classrooms as a supplementary material, especially for social
studies.
For social studies. So there are places that is already being utilized in school and in classes. And yes, the reason as to why it's applicable is because unlike the previous curriculum, the CBC now has components that are teaching constitution and constitutionalism. You have like in grade 6 or 8, I believe, they're being taught about the preamble. So it's incremental. You have grade 6 teaching a part of the Constitution, grade 8 a part of the Constitution as a transition now to senior school. So it's something that's already happening, perhaps not as big scale as it should, but it's already happening. So one of the things that I am doing, besides now just making the book available, is going to schools and engaging with book clubs and school clubs, whatever structures they have, so that then we can talk about the Constitution exclusively and comprehensively,
right?
Even as they go on with their social studies and their other engagement. So that could be another point of engagement with those you speak with within your circles. In the event that we need to have more discussions on the Constitution, that would be something wonderful that we can do as well.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So tonight's conversation reminds us that democracy is not just about leaders and elections. It is about citizens, informed, engaged, and willing to ask difficult questions. My thanks to Sandra Ochola for joining us and for sharing her perspective on leadership, civic responsibility, and the future of governance in Africa. But now, the question turns to you. Do you believe African citizens truly understand the power that they hold? Or have we surrendered that responsibility to the political elites? Let me know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Like the video. Share the conversation with someone who cares about the future of leadership in Africa. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, go ahead and do it. Yes, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do it. Because here on the Tony Chirah Show, we don't whisper around power, we question it. My name is Tony Chirah, and I'll see you on the next conversation. Bye-bye. That was awesome.
Thank you.